Wow.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Where's the mic?
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, okay. We heard you. We heard you. Yeah, yeah. You got a strong voice. Strong
We're
voice.
So it took some time for me to read it, but after I read it, it was for me. It was like, damn, crazy. Y'all give us just the blueprint to create a successful group like SWAT League and a successful pro-black cultural group.
I don't even know how to thank
Oh,
you.
for real, man, for real.
Really. Um, Not only will I send that word back to my partner Stickman, because he needs to hear that. My Stick is like I said, very influential on me. I wasn't even writing a rap before I met him. I had written one rap, but I had not written like rap. I wasn't a writer at that point, and it was at that point when I was 17 years old where I met this 15-year-old guy who was killing it. That I was like, we had similar thought pattern, but I wasn't putting it into words the same way he had been doing, and what you read in the art of emceeing came from experience, his experience, and much of it that we had together from being thrown into the fire. I call it baptized in the fire of music because we don't have like music theory teachers. We don't grow up with violins and pianos in our home. I grew up with some records. You know what I'm saying? I was lucky my mom was a jazz singer and put me on to a lot of great music. But to be honest, the way you learn emceeing from a hip hop perspective is like very unorthodox and most of the time violates any kind of idea that people have about like technique at all. Like, so we had to learn how to speak into the microphone. Most MCs do the mic like this. Most MCs, which you can see now, you can only hear the high parts of the microphone. We had to be able to understand how when you perform, you have to let people hear your full voice, and then there's EQing. You EQ that part. We had to learn how to stand in front of the microphone in the studio the correct way, and how to project outward to make the voice come right, so that could get a solid recording. We had to learn, so many things that were pitfalls for him, and were very frustrating as Dad Prez. Our tandem works in many different ways, but I gotta say that I'm so happy that he's vigilant about not only like being Stickman, but being Stickman the educator, being Stickman the martial artist, being Stickman the comrade, because he took all that stuff and wrote it down, and he was like, I'm gonna put this book out. I'm not make it too long so that people will want to read it, but I'm also gonna just tell it real. And man, like I just really have to say thank you for reading it and mentioning it amongst books that have influenced the way you are in your education. I don't even know how to say thank you enough for that. So I will deliver the message. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing to see and hear. Yeah, yesterday we talked a bit about the need for intergenerational conversations. Simone, I know you mentioned it, what it means to have a community, to build a community, and yeah, intergenerational conversation and sharing information between generations can be done in different ways. Can be done through books, can be done through music, can be done by conversations like we're having just now. So can you tell a little bit again about what your thoughts about the need for these kinds of generational conversations, Simone?
I think it's important to talk with our elders, to talk with people from different communities, as to not make the same mistakes over and over again, and to not have the luxury to think that what you're doing is the first of its kind. And I think for a while, for example, with the figure we're not gonna mention again. Some of us thought that this is our struggle and our struggle only. And the Black Archives has been pivotal in understanding that our generations before us have been invested in that struggle, have been invested in like decolonizing schools around here. And I think you cannot fully understand and respect the other generations if you don't know what they did. And sometimes we're a little cocky and we feel that we are the first and the best and why didn't they do something before, but people did what they did with the means that they had. And I think that's why it's important for me at least to read autobiographies. So you can also understand how people go through a thought process. And for example, I saw a poster outside of Miles Davis. They're showing a Miles Davis documentary. And Miles Davis was known for mocking Louis Armstrong. He thought Louis Armstrong was fake and he was like making all these moves to please white people. And later Louis Armstrong said, but I did what I could with the means that I had. And Miles Davis, tough as nails as he is, he apologized. He apologized for saying, I should have never put down Louis Armstrong for what he did, but because he moved within his means. And I feel like if a person like Miles Davis can apologize, if a person like Muhammad Ali can apologize for having treated Malcolm the way he did when he felt convinced of what he was doing, then I think we should all be a little bit more humble and say, like, maybe we made a mistake. And maybe we can look back at what other people did and give them proper credit without feeling like giving somebody else credit is taking away from my credit. Credit is not pie. There's enough for all of us. So I think that's an important thing.
May I, sister, since we have you here, I think I would like to ask you a question if you don't mind. Can you talk to me about how you feel about women in hip hop today? Can you tell me?
Yes,
go.
I can.
And I want to preface I know you can. I want to preface the question a little bit about the question of sexism in hip hop. I want to just kind of draw that on the floor, and so that can be there. I want to talk about the power, the power of the platform that women are using today, and the power in women's voice, and then kind of like talk about like where it's going, what that future. So you don't have to answer any of that, but just kind of do you.
I feel like if we look at the position of women in hip hop, we can already start by the name female MC. That means that we automatically assume that an MC is a male person, right? And we should know better. We come from a Lauryn Hill, we come from a Salt and Pepper, Queen Latifah. We now have a Rhapsody. But whenever we speak about women in hip hop, we talk about Nicki Minaj, not to diss Nicki Minaj. But you have so many other people making amazing music. And I think history has taught us that we erase women who are critical, who are pro-black and decolonial, because it makes a lot of people uneasy. It makes a lot of people unsure about their position, and it just keeps repeating itself.
I'm not gonna. I promise I'm not gonna take hold of your.
It's an open convo.
But I got to do it one more time. So recently I saw a conversation that Cardi B was having with Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders is a presidential candidate inside the United States. I know y'all aware. And he has some socialist leaning tendencies. There are pictures where he has showed up in certain civil rights movement activities. He is, people know Killer Mike. I know Killer Mike before Run the Jewels, but some people know Killer Mike from Run the Jewels, and he's a proponent of Bernie Sanders' kind of politic. In the conversation that I saw that Cardi B had with Bernie Sanders, I have to say that I was proud of the way she used her voice and that platform. But then there is another side to that coin, because there can be criticism that Cardi B has over-sexualized the platforms that she has, or used sexuality in a way that women have almost had been forced into before. In order to see light, you have to show your titties. We don't got no kids in the room. We good with that. And my point is, talk about that. Does that matter to you? Can Cardi B be important? I have 5 daughters. They like Cardi B. You know what I'm saying? They like Cardi B. So I just want to say, let's just put that on the floor. What do you think?
Well, I think there are two different things. I feel that we dismiss Cardi B based on respectability politics. We dismiss her because she is over sexualized. But then again, we look at Josephine Baker and feel that Josephine Baker is super revolutionary. So maybe in 60 years, we will look back at Cardi B and say Cardi B was a revolutionary. But I also feel, and you pointed out yesterday, that who do you appoint to speak on certain matters? And I feel that that is something that only happens to us. There is never a white Republican or Democrat, for that matter, that would ever ask Taylor Swift, bless her, to speak on political matters. But if it's about political matters, we get Cardi B, or we get Jay-Z, for that matter. You know what I mean? So I think we have not learned yet how to control who's speaking for this particular movement, because it can also harm a particular movement. But this is not to say to dismiss her based on her appearance. But who do you push forward? And I didn't follow the debate between Bernie Sanders because I tried to stay a little bit away from, United States politics since it overshadows everything that else happens in the world. So I didn't follow that particular debate, but I'm not sure what her knowledge is on the election, the upcoming elections, and the knowledge about Bernie Sanders. But I feel like we dismiss her based on things that are not really fair. But by all means, and we see it in the Netherlands as well, sometimes MCs say yes to that invitation to sit on the table and to talk about stuff, and then we sit behind our TVs and cringe because you're doing harm to the community. And your 15 seconds of fame put us back 15 years. So, maybe not every day say yes. And maybe we can start a fund to have people, give people money so you don't have to say yes. If your mortgage is that expensive, maybe we can pay it for you as a community just so you can shut up for a minute and let somebody else talk.
I agree with you 100%. And I even wrote a rap about that, actually, that thing before. But I do want to say that what Cardi B did in many ways was pretty enlightening, because she talked about things like a living wage for working class people, which what I thought was really a crucial point. And she also talked about the prison industrial complex in her own words. So
that's also important, because what you said yesterday with regards to Fred Hampton, plain proletarian English. She speaks the language of people who might not have the vocabulary to read a specific book, and then are dismissed because they don't have the vocabulary to express in that kind of way. So I feel like if she reaches a lot of people with a message about mass incarceration, God bless Cardi B. That's how I feel.
And we'll get back to the political fuels, capitalism, Jay-Z, in a few minutes. But you also mentioned that, often are being overshadowed by the U.S., both in terms of entertainment and also political developments. But both of you, Hazy and Simone, recently went to Senegal, where you attended, I think, one of the biggest hip-hop festivals, where you have a very vibrant hip-hop community using their platform for political goals. So can you tell a little bit more about that? What you did there, what you learned there, and
Yeah, we went to Senegal and we had the chance to meet the fellas from Yanamar. I don't know if you're familiar. Yanamar is a group a group of artists and creatives who do everything from making music to they have journalists, they have social workers, they create opportunities for the people, for the poor, and they made sure that one of the presidents who wasn't really doing anything for the people resigned, and they had a new president come into power, and that has never happened in hip hop like that in ever.
Wow.
And yeah, so we had the chance to meet them, and they showed us around. They showed us the most. They showed us a lot of beautiful places in Senegal, and they showed us around the community. They showed us the headquarters, and then at the end of the festival, at the end of
the trip.
yeah, the end of the trip, we performed at the festival, and it was good. It was a good show.
Do you know the name of the festival? Festa what?
Festa 2H.
Yeah, Festa 2H.
2H. Oh, 2H. Okay, yeah, I know this.
Yeah.
I know this.
Okay. Nope. Anything to add? Because you were there as well, Simone.
It was fantastic. It was super black. Um, it was just a wonderful space. It was wonderful to meet with artists who are activists in their own right. And it was nice to see that they have their own infrastructure. So you go to a press conference and they set up the entire conference. So you're not dependent on media that might want to talk about you in a specific way. They were stellar. So yeah, it was a mixture of a conference and a big festival. And we went to visit Goree Island and visit the Door of No Return, which was my second time there. It was impressive. It remains impressive. And I went to the Museum of Black Civilizations, and just walking in the door and hearing the young brother at the door explaining the different floors of the museum. Even if that was the entire trip, that was perfect. Because if you look at a museum here, it's hyper-colonial. And there, it just looked better. So it was an amazing experience, yeah, for sure.
Very good.
Awesome.
I think
Nice.
somebody from Yanamar is here tonight, actually.
Really?
I think so. Somebody
Yeah?
wanted to come tonight.
Someone?
Maybe not. I thought
No?
Julie was here.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll get to the stage where you can ask questions from the audience in a few minutes. Before this last question, which I already kind of introduced and we touched upon briefly. Yeah, the idea of Pan-Africanism and also, your political vision, Mutulo. Yesterday we talked about it in a quite elaborate way, and you briefly mentioned it, African socialism. And when we were in Berlin, we met each other at the Pan-African conference at a Black Archive in Berlin. And yeah, you talked about your, critical views on capitalism, the idea of dual power. I found very interesting. And yeah, we also discussed how that connected to hip hop.
Yes.
And there's a very interesting situation, I think, currently with Colin Kaepernick, the football player who's been known for being one of the leaders, trying to get attention for the problem of police brutality, police violence, or police terror in the United States by simply kneeling when the national anthem was being sung. And recently, one of the biggest MCs in hip-hop, Jay-Z, chose to
Arguably the biggest.
yeah, the biggest maybe when you look at it financially, because yeah, he made a deal with the NFL saying, hey, this we got the point. We should move beyond kneeling. So it's about 3 questions in one. But yeah, can you share your views on this situation? I would like you, AC and Simon, to add on that as well.
Well, I mean, if in Jay-Z's press conference, if he had been as respectful as you had elaborated that, we're past the kneeling. It was more. It was in utter disrespect, and I want to say because it backhanded the power, the momentum that was built, and the platform that was made that Colin Kaepernick set up for Jay-Z to be able to do what he's doing now. The conversation could not have happened without Colin Kaepernick pressing the gas on the question, calling the NFL, the National Football League, on the question of its racist politics. And I think, pardon me, the NFL is outwardly racist in the first place. Just by the fact that there are no black owners, but all the players are black. And I think if you want to talk about it, I think it makes sense. I think it matters. We made all these so-called black millionaire athletes, but who have absolutely no power at all. I think that watching that dynamic alone understands racism in its most critical form. So we talk about Pan-Africanism to lead into it. I'm not a Pan-Africanist. I want to be clear on that. Because I understand what Pan-Africanism is, and no disrespect to Pan-Africanists. Jay-Z is a Pan-Africanist, and you can be Pan-African and capitalist. You can be a Pan-African and be about the exploitation of African people. it happens. It's been happening around the world, and that's kind of the one of the places that happens. Because just because it's African don't mean it's good. There's many African sellouts. There's many African people who will do dirt to other Africans. And the reason why I'm an African internationalist is because it aligns with socialism. It aligns with the people who deserve power, who are not in power, and who want to get there the right way, who want to share that power with all the people who are willing to work that power, work on it to get there. You know what I mean? And this is a critical idea. I think that's why when the criticism of Jay-Z comes and he then retorts, but look what I've done. I've got a lot of people out of jail. I put some people through college. I paid for this rapper to do this, and I did that. I put in my work for the black community. Okay. This is what I have to say to that. But where are the long-standing programs? Where is the revolutionary? And it got to be revolutionary, man. Where is the revolutionary agenda? Because just because you free people from prison does not mean that you're revolutionary. Because you have people who are in prison who are revolutionaries still living, who fought for Jay-Z's right to be where he is. Now, why aren't we talking about freeing those people? Why aren't we talking about freeing Mutulu Shakur, who is in jail, and we know that it's injustice, is under the most unjust kind of way. So, I'm not. This is not in any way a criticism of Jay-Z. This is a criticism of capitalism, and moreover, a criticism of the idea that black capitalism is the key to liberation. We ain't gonna buy no freedom. We're not gonna buy freedom. It was never for sale. We were beaten, twisted, bloodied, and locked into this position. And the only way we're going to get out of this position is to organize and unlock that box. But we're not going to vote our way to freedom. It's not going to happen. We're not going to buy our way out of freedom. We're not going to pray our way into this. We are going to organize our way into liberation, and it's not going to happen by the dollar or the euro or the yen. So, mind you, I'm going to leave it at this. Jay-Z is just a casualty of that conversation. That's the real conversation, because there are many black capitalists. He's just one of them. He's not free, even though he might tell you that equates freedom. And Rick Ross will tell you to buy up the block, because that'll be free. We'll be free, with that agenda. There is an agenda that does include black economic self-development. That does exist. We do need money. We need money. But we ain't talking about capitalist dollars. And again, I will introduce the concept of dual power. We have to be capitalist from above and socialist from below. Because capitalism was born at the exploitation of African people. I'm clear on that. It was my black ass, which is the reason why they drive in Bentleys. I know we paved all the roads. I know we are the ones who worked the fields and we put the dinner on the table. And we know we the ones who only got the scraps and still do today. So, mind you, I think the question is, why not do away with a system that exploits us completely and there's no reform to that exploitation. A little bit of exploitation still ain't going to sit good with me. I'm not going to be good with it at all. And so with that being said, we need to talk about a new system and not be afraid to do it, to boldly go where no one has gone before, and start talking about how to govern differently without exploitation under these terms. And that, I think, governs the conversation that about any other black capitalist and Jay-Z and anybody else. Again, for those recording and how this gets on the internet, because all this gets out of context, I ain't against Jay-Z. I'm against black capitalism. Woo! I'm against capitalism at all. Thank you.
Anything you would like to add, comment?
Yeah, I had a different opinion, but I think you just swayed me. I see your point. The way I felt before was, I think, I used to think it was important for black people to also be in a position of power, like
5 minutes ago.
financially, and be in the there's a couple of wealthy families, wealthy anonymous families. This is a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. And those families, we need to be on equal footing with those people in power, like the people that are up there. And only then we'll have a say in the world. That's what I used to think, but I think maybe a change in system may be more effective.
Thank you, thank you. Simone?
With regards to reading, the first question you asked, I would like to add a writer to the list, which was Amiri Baraka, and he has an amazing poem called "Somebody Blew Up America." In it, he asked the question,
somebody what?
"Somebody blew up America," and in it, he asked the question, "Who owns the owners that ain't the real owners?" That's Jay-Z. He has a lot of money, but he doesn't have the power he associates with that kind of money. And you have another book if you want to read. You have an autobiography of I think it's Harry Belafonte or Sidney Poitier, and there was this incident. Dream Hampton speaks on it. She has an amazing documentary called Black August. If you're on YouTube or Vimeo, you can check it. It's about a group of MCs. That Prez is one of them, who went to Cuba and I think South Africa. Anyway, so she made a comment also about this. So it's online, you can check it. It's about Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier traveling to the south of the United States. They travel there, and situation gets hectic. They are followed, I think, by Klans members. And Sidney Poitier says to Harry Belafonte, people, you know who Harry Belafonte is? Sidney Poitier? Okay. Sidney Poitier says to him, "Next time, I am writing you a check." In other words, he doesn't want to be in the mix of everything else. He just wants to spend his money, and that is his contribution to the liberation. Jay-Z is somebody who should spend money and not yap. It's damaging for us. So you have all this money, and now you're going to tell Brother Colin that he shouldn't be kneeling? But he was also kneeling for Jay-Z. So instead of having this conversation indoors, why do you sit next to a white man explaining how what another black man did is harming you? And then blaming single mothers, all this stuff. Why don't you just shine the check in quiet? You know what I mean? And I think that is the function. But because he is so hyper visible, we think he can do everything. We ask him everything. So it's not about, indeed, it's not about being anti-Jay-Z. It's about being anti-people who yap before it's their turn to speak. And it's about being against a specific system that he is the personification of at this
Don't
very
you,
moment.
just to be devil's advocate, don't you think that Jay-Z is trying to be one of the people you said in control of the power, in control of the people with money? Like he's a person with money. You said there's people in control of the people with money. Don't you think he's trying to become one of the people in control?
But I think
And don't you think that will help?
I don't think that intention doesn't change the reality that he isn't. I think.
Don't you think?
I want to say that if Jay-Z can win his way into the 1%, where then is his influence? Because you see, in order to become that rich, you have to hog the resources up. And I think he's clear on where that glass ceiling is. He knows who the owners are and why he can't pierce that 1%. He knows that's generational wealth. That comes from stolen gold that came from our people long time ago. But this is my point. Then why then try to go get a seat at their table when you can make your own table? Why, if he's that influential, why aren't we building a system? Why aren't we making our own football league instead of joining that football league? He's actually a sports representative. He represents many athletes who he could influence to join a new league of our own. I don't want to give Jay-Z any ideas. I'm just trying to say this. I'm just trying to say this. I'm going to put it in context. Dream Hampton is a member of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, which is underneath an umbrella called the New African People's Organization, an organization born out of revolution inside the United States, the New African People's Organization, who had a consideration of making a nation inside a nation of inside the United States and detaching from the United States. It was called the Black Belt South. This was not the organization that I joined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we think about the Hasselhoffs, they were part of that black communist movement. We were talking about this like 100 years ago.
Right. So this is where Dream Hampton comes from. Just in case anybody just thinks Dream Hampton is a journalist who also did the documentary about surviving R. Kelly, because she did that. In case anybody needs some context, she is an associate of mine. For many years, we worked side by side in this movement. Dream Hampton informed Tupac, informed many artists inside the hip hop community about activism, about ideological struggle. Why wouldn't Dream Hampton struggle with Jay-Z more? And the idea that he can just give a check and get out of there, I'm going to tell you how that goes wrong. Katrina happened. We call it Hurricane America. We don't call it Katrina. We call it Hurricane America. Hurricane America happened, and why? Because we know it was the inaction of the government that led to the tragedy that happened in Katrina. Had it been white people, he would have been. That would have happened a whole nother way. That's called Hurricane America, right? And then there's the outpouring and outcry of how can we help? And then Jay-Z says, I'm going to give money. I'm going to give millions of dollars to this. And I was a part of this. I saw this all happen. And then there's this, well, who do we give the money to? Wow. So then Jay-Z, we struggle. We struggle because I'm close to the Malcolm X grassroots movement, which Dream Hampton is a member of. Jay-Z, let's give the money to the grassroots organizations in Mississippi and Louisiana so they can do the work. Jay-Z says, no, I'm going to give the money to the Red Cross. So when you give your check, your millions of dollars, and there's a scandal about the Red Cross, they don't even know where the money went today. They don't even know where that money went. The Red Cross, today, if you look into it, there's a huge scandal. Where did the money for Hurricane Katrina go? The Red Cross can't even account for those funds. Jay-Z's money, when we could have given it directly. So there's even a problem with giving a check and walking away. You have to be informed. And it's okay to be informed. We don't have to just let people be ignorant and ride in their own ignorance. We got to do better.
And that's why we're having this conversation. And now it's time to open it up to the audience. We have about 10 to 15 minutes left. I'm sorry it was supposed to be more, but it got a bit interesting. So, Jesse will walk, okay. Yeah, someone will walk with the mic. So, how many questions are there? I see one in front.
They should probably walk down.
Okay, just one. We'll start with you. I want to ask everyone to keep it short, concise, and to the point.
Yes. Hi, how are you? My name's LaShawn. You mentioned Nicki Minaj earlier. I'm wondering, what do you guys think of her? Because you said we don't dismiss her. I feel like we do dismiss her. Especially, well, I'm not a part of the hip-hop community. I'll keep it short. Anyway, I feel like the hip-hop community does dismiss her, mainly men. For me, Nicki Minaj stands for female empowerment, femme empowerment, and has made hip-hop very accessible to me as a black queer person. So my question is, how do you feel about Nicki Minaj and her influence, that way, and maybe also queer representation in hip-hop, and queer discrimination in hip-hop? I'm very curious about that.
I feel we don't dismiss her in how visible she is. That's what I mean. So if you look at, for example, Rhapsody, Rhapsody doesn't get the same exposure as Nicki Minaj. That's what I mean. So she doesn't get that same exposure, but we gravitate towards a Nicki Minaj. And she does get dismissed based on her appearance and how she portrays herself. But your second question was? Sorry?
Representation of queer communities in the hip-hop industry.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, yeah.
I would like to help, and I don't. I know the question was directed toward the sister, but I would like to say that I agree. You're right. She's dismissed, and myself and my wife talk about this a lot. My wife won't even let me bring up the name Nicki Minaj. She completely abhors her, right? Oh wow, I'm sorry for people who really love my wife. My wife, people who know my wife. I'm sorry. I didn't want to let that cat out the bag, so don't tell her I said that. This is private. This is private. I guess not anymore. But I want to say the reason why it's not private, the reason why I don't mind bringing this on the table is because there's truth to that. There's truth that definitely the male-dominated hip-hop industry does kind of dismiss who Nicki Minaj is, and I think that what she has done for the LBGTQ community is enormous. And you know why she cannot get that credit is because this is for the same reason that many politicians who get voted into office, and I'm gonna call you $1 a vote. You bought her album, you bought her downloads, you made her millions of dollars. She is out of here rich. The same way we put all the votes towards our politicians and send them to the government, and the first thing they do is turn their back on us. There is no accountability from Nicki Minaj. If I could speak to Nicki Minaj, I would say, where are you accountable to the LGBTQ community? When can we see you stand up and talk about these rights? Well, I never hear her, besides celebrating life. I mean, I think there's a platform for that. I think there's a huge platform that people can see her in a beautiful light. And so my point is, for people who are supporters of Nicki in the way you are, and in my household, I'm the only lonely supporter of Nicki Minaj. I would say, sister, please speak up. Use your voice. Use your platform. Turn around to these people who supported you, the Barbs, and tell them, look, I got you. We're going to meet all over here. We're going to talk about legislation that's going to help us for our rights, the rights for the LGBTQ community. And maybe I'm ill-informed, but I think I pay attention to Nicki, and that's what I'm saying. The importance is in the accountability, which is the same thing that happens with our relationship to our legislators. There's no accountability. They go and we don't. They're just on the hill, looking up, looking down, waving. And that is my quip with whatever can happen with Nicki. She's an amazing person, great artist, but it's bigger than hip hop.
It's bigger than hip hop. All right. We still have space for about 2 questions. Anybody?
I missed it. Oh. Yeah, you might need to rephrase it. And I'm sorry if I talk.
Oh, no, it's fine. Say it again.
Queer discrimination in hip hop. I think recently I just listened to it, and I didn't even realize that was in the lyrics, but one of DMX's songs, which I still kind of love it, but it's extremely homophobic, and when I listen to it, I just tell myself, like, it's ironic. I just laugh at it, and I want to perform it because I'm a drag performer. But
you said you want to perform it?
yeah, because I'm a drag performer and like to. I'm sorry, I can't remember. I think it's there are so many.
How about we have 7 different options for homophobic DMX songs?
Yeah.
But maybe that's the answer to the question.
Yeah, but
Right?
anyway, just what do you think of that? And in general, not just DMX, because I hear a lot of homophobic, transphobic lyrics in hip hop, and it hurts, and I think it's so stupid because I, as a black queer person, understand that. Why would you discriminate against your own? It's the same thing white people do to black people. Why would you do that? It's so stupid. Yeah.
I'm gonna let you lend to it. I'm sorry.
I think it's a culture that very much discriminates on a lot of different levels. And why I find it difficult to answer the question is because it's so much erased that for me, I can almost not speak about it. You know what I mean? So, for example, you had the conversation about Missy Elliott being a queer artist. But we are having that conversation amongst ourselves. I don't recall, and maybe she did, I don't recall that Missy Elliott ever spoke on that. I don't recall that, for example, Queen Latifah ever spoke on that.
Never.
So with regard to representation, let me put it differently. I don't recall that she spoke on that when I was a big Queen Latifah fan back in the day, and she had these different videos, and she had this very empowering song, UNITY, where she speaks about empowering and uplifting, and I was like, sis, but you fail to mention a very important part of your identity. And I don't know why that is. I know why it is, but I don't know why it's taking such a long time for that conversation to happen on a level where much more people have access to it. Because of course you have a lot of queer hip hop MCs, hip hop artists, sorry. But is it accessible for people who need to hear that conversation? I'm not sure because mainstream is it's a very monotonous group that is making it to the mainstream. So I find it difficult to answer the question because I wouldn't even know where to enter. You know what I mean?
I would like to start a little bit too because I'm gonna go personal with it. I was raised by lesbian women. My mom's a lesbian, and my dad. A lot of you don't know that. Some of you do. You may have heard me say it before. So, you know, my lens of understanding what it means to be gay, lesbian, queer happened when I was 14 years old. That became like a thunderbolt in my house, right? And I was like, I had to grapple with what what it means because I had this kind of male dominated worldview until my mom said, I like women only. I said, well, what about dad? And the rest. And so things began to change. I had to consider a new world that though I hadn't considered because of misogyny and this masculinity and patriarchy that has put this thing in a certain kind of context. So then when I then went out into my community and began to fight for the right to not see it that way, I wasn't going to let people say faggot and dyke no more. And I'm like, well, you can't really do that with me because now this is my identity. This is in my house. I love these people. So you can't do that. And so what we have inside hip hop is a reflection of this patriarchal worldview. Let me tell you, from the inside out, it's a hard one. It's hard. I think you're going to continue to battle with people, and men and women actually, who say brutal things against the gay, trans, queer community, and it's normal. Just laugh it off. I think what we have to do is begin to uphold, just like I was saying last night about trap music. We can't talk about what we're against. We got to talk about what we're for. So you got a lot of artists out there who are willing to take up the mantle and talk, and who willing to say. And we got to champion those people. We have to support those people. We have to put those people in light and not talk about the people who are saying all this negative shit or not saying anything. But there's so many people who have chosen a great role and taken this platform and said, this is what we're going to be about. And I've said, okay, I'm going to support those people. And so la-di-do with these people. I think at the end of the day, that's got to be the battle. I don't think we can be going into Busta Rhymes raps and say, don't say that word anymore. You know what I'm saying? I don't think we can go into DMX's raps and battle with DMX's mind. Because I mean, it's something about teaching the old dog new tricks that's hard. But then it's also like, look, we have to build a new future for ourselves. We have to build a future that we can believe in and whatever. And I rationalize with you when you say you hear the song, but you still want to sing it. You know why? Because there's this kind of like understanding that, like, man, the pig-headed, stubborn ways that ignorance is laughable almost. It's almost laughable, to see that you really want to take a stance against a gay person in that way that you would write it in your rap. It's really not. It's just that you're ignorant. And so again, we can't talk about what we're so much not for. We got to talk about what we are for, and then build that platform, uphold these artists who are celebrating this in a brand new way, and go forward. That's what I think.
But I think it's important to also address what you are against, and to hold people accountable for what they do, because we wouldn't accept, I don't know, name any white boy rapper to use the N-word. And I know that's a discussion that's also happening in the Netherlands, like, can they say that? So even though I'm not sure if you would unlearn your old tricks, but every time you're around me, I have to say it to you. I have to speak it. Just to let you know that in my presence, if you like your teeth, you are not saying that word.
I understand it.
But just to put those boundaries. Yeah. And then of course I'm going to say, rather if you listen to Zwart Licht than the white boy saying N-word. But I also need to address the white boy saying N-word.
That's a tough one, and I want to respond to you in a way that says, are we really going to get white people to stop saying nigga? Can we? Can we? No, I don't think we can get white people to stop saying nigga.
What? Yes.
I think you think that's that fight is worth doing? I think we can fight for so many more things besides changing white people from saying the word nigga.
But I think we can multitask.
Okay.
And throughout history, we always had to multitask. Okay. So I don't think any battle is too small to not pick up the baton.
I unite. I unite, sister.
See a lot of hands up going on.
I unite.
Yeah. Izzy, jij wil nog wat... you
Oh
want
no,
to add something?
I just wanted to react to his his
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Just yeah, I just wanted to say I think it takes time. Your question, I think it takes time because the homophobia is so deep rooted in in hip hop. It's a macho culture, and I think there's more queer artists coming out now. So I think it's just a matter of time.
I think there's time for one. How many people have questions? Okay, then we have the last one there. That's good. Clarice.
Yes, I have a question, but I also have some comments. I'm going to try and keep it short.
Yes.
First of all, sort of talking about, queerphobia, transphobia within the hip hop community, I think it's important that, because we talked about learning from our elders and paying a tribute and being reminded of the work they did and the liberation that they sort of, enhanced, created for all of us. And I think important part of that dialogue is also recognizing that a lot of black queer people were in the front of that liberation. And even now, Black Lives Matter was founded by two black queer women, three women, two of them are queer. Lorraine Hansberry, James Baldwin, etc. So I think if we're talking about our elders, that's a specific part that we can't leave out. We can't erase that, and I think that is also an important part within hip hop. And when you talk about like MCs like MC Light, Queen Latifah, who are queer people, when they might not be as vocal about it as they are, that doesn't mean you can't support them and still support who they are. They don't have to talk about it for you to support them. So I think that's important. And that Nicki Minaj might be, a queer or LGBTQI icon, but that when you talk about representation, about supporting, all types of black people, it shouldn't only be the people that are supposedly the icon for a specific group. It should be all people. So I think that's important. And also about Cardi B, I wanted to add that she is actually very knowledgeable, and I think that people often misconstrue her sort of knowledge or misrepresent it because of the way she speaks, which is very classist, and it's about respectability politics. While she's a hustler, she's been hustling, and all she's doing by showing herself or being the way she is stating that she's not ashamed of the hustle that she had to do to become who she is, and that is something that we should also respect because I think that is a huge part of hip hop too. So that, but my question was actually.
There it goes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Run it down. Run it down.
I actually did have a question. Because I was really impressed with the trip y'all made to Senegal and the exchange you had with Yanamar. I know Yanamar, and it's really amazing the movement that they started on the continent and also how it spread throughout, I think, mostly West Africa. And also impressed with and what you said about being an African internationalist. Is that what you said? Yes. And I don't completely agree about Pan-Africanism, but that's a different discussion. Yes. So my question is actually, how do we keep these transnational sort of conversations going and not only centralize like the European or Western perspectives?
How do you say it again? How do you keep
like these transnational conversations going? So we're representing sort of European perspective and American perspective, but we're talking about African internationalism and the African perspective, or even the South American perspective, because there's black people everywhere, is very important. So how do you keep these dialogues going internationally? Actually, that's the question.
Well, if I can comment on that quickly, one of the ideas that we have, I think I see one of the people of the organization there who organize it. So one of the things that we've been discussing is to bring some of the people of Yanamar here and organize something with them. He is here actually. Yeah. Round of applause. So, yeah. Shout out to him. So instead of talking about them, maybe next time we can talk with them. And there are so many other, artists also outside of hip hop and other forms of art that can bring the opportunity to continue the conversation. And that's what we intend to do with both this program, Books We Share That Make Us Care, and also the Black Archive. So that's one answer. And the second thing, which we also discussed in Berlin, in terms of erasure of queer people who were on the front lines. I think you gave a very interesting example about some of the people in the Black Panther Party who were queer, but that part of them have been erased. Maybe you can comment on that, and then I think we have to wrap it up.
I just want to say how powerful your comments were and your question. To speak to some of your comments, there is an alignment between liberation movements that emerged inside the United States during the 1960s that is akin to the emerging of the gay rights movement, and which it began to work hand in hand. You see the Black Power movement busting through the doors with the gay liberation movement arm in arm, and I think that connection has been lost in many ways. I think to begin to talk about rights for all includes all is very important, and that's what the Black Panther Party did and was doing, and had made many solid moves of solidarity with many organizations around the questions of liberation, not only in sexuality but political liberation and the rest. So I think that's important to put that back on the table, to acknowledge that actually happened, and that there wouldn't even be we wouldn't even be talking about LBGTQ rights if it wasn't for Black Power, especially inside the United States. Maybe not here, because I'm learning the history here, but inside the United States, it wouldn't even happen. So the two are in many ways synonymous. What Mitchell was referring to is a man named Kwesi Balagoon, who was a member of the security force of the New York Black Panther Party. I learned about Kwesi Balagoon from my stepfather, my teacher, my mentor, Mutulu Shakur, who is a political prisoner, who is the stepfather of Tupac Shakur, and was the mate of Afeni Shakur, and is a leader, still a leader inside our communities, even though he's in the dungeons and jails in the United States prison system for over 20 years or 30 years. I don't even know how long he's been in prison. Mutulu told me about Kwesi Balagoon and then handed me a book that Kwesi Balagoon wrote. And Kwesi was a trans man, a trans person in the movement who was definitely fighting for his space, but even still was recognized for his ferocious way of defending our people. He was, not to mention he was a gun specialist and taught gun techniques to the whole of the movement, but he was one of the most reliable security forces in the New York Black Panther Party. And so many people don't know that he was a queer person. And so a lot of times when we lay that out, people in their bravado and machismo and masculinity say, yeah, Black Panther Party, and then, but when Kwesi Balagoon's name is brought up in that light, have a hard time defending the Black Panther Party in the same way. And I think that, of course, that's as backwards as it gets. That's hypocritical as it comes. So I've embraced Kwesi Balagoon. I shout him out on all of the songs that we shout out our revolutionary heroes, and I bring this conversation into the room so that people can be uncomfortable about you think you supporting an organization which I want to say that one of the downfalls of the Black Panther Party was its sexism. One of the main downfalls and the reason why it was not able to adapt and be what it needed to be was because it was riddled with sexist kind of guidelines and unwritten rules that were really not conducive to it expanding and being what it needed to be to live ideologically into today. So I just want to kind of say that about it, and also give some context to the movement and this all being one part of one united struggle.
Thank you. Yeah, you can clap. Yeah, it's time to wrap it up. I think we would be able to continue the conversation for a few hours, but unfortunately, we have to continue with the program. So, what I wanna suggest is to make a last round. Start with Simone, then Hazy. Maybe wanna leave, a last thought with the people about maybe upcoming projects or the last thing that we talked about. And what I want to ask you, M1, to comment on Leslie maybe shortly, is to talk a little bit about your evolution since that press until the music that you will perform later and the projects that you have been doing with DJ Bono. So, yeah, make us out with Simone and then if you can keep it short and to the point as well.
I'd like to add something to your question. And I think a lot of people clapped when the suggestion was raised that, it takes time. But I feel like if we study our history, we know that it's been time. And I don't want people to leave with the idea of, if we just wait for it, it will magically change. I feel like it's something we have to work for. Anything you don't see, any misrepresentation, is something you have to actively work for. Nobody's gonna wake up with a sense of humanity for somebody who's not part of their direct community. So this is something we have to actively fight for. I'm all for supporting what you said, like Missy Elliott, MC Light, but I feel like we haven't supported them maybe enough. You have so many women in hip hop we haven't supported enough. For example, Lauryn Hill, and I will always say I will take no disrespect about Lauryn Hill. And people mock her, make memes about her. This sister gave so much to the movement. And if you study her history, you know that people are dealing with many different issues that make them act the way they act. And I feel like if we can take anything away from an evening, let it be to have a little bit more respect for each other. Because if you are a true student of our histories as black people in the Western Hemisphere, you need to have respect for one another. So if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I feel misrepresented, even I told you honestly, I don't have the answer. If you don't have the answer, be honest about not having the answer. But be willing to invest and say, okay, like, how are we going to change? What are we going to invest? How are we going to support? So saying it takes time, it's been time. And we wouldn't accept that for any struggle that we feel very passionate about. So let's not make somebody else walk away with the feeling of saying, like, we have to wait for a little bit more. That's what I wanted to add to you. So instead of doing self-promotion, this is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just wanted to add to that. In terms of like black people being really liberated and really free completely, I think we're doing a good job. I think black people are really on the right path. Um, you have to keep in mind we've been enslaved longer than we've been free. Um, so yeah, I think slavery has been like for 400 years.
But we've been around for so much longer.
Yeah, but I mean in terms of healing from that slavery and bouncing back and really reclaiming the earth.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah. So I think we're on the right path.
I think so. I think we are an amazing people. Let that be very clear. I think black folks are amazing. We are resilient. We are fantastic.
See? That's what I was trying
I
to say.
forgot to add that. I forgot to add how much I
Shout
love
out to
us.
us. Shout out to us.
Let that go on record.
Yeah. So if you can shortly just say a little bit about your evolution to the current projects, and then we have to wrap it up because I already see people looking at me like, hey.
Okay. So yeah, we're gonna there's gonna be an awesome show after this, and I want to say, continuing the conversation about this African internationalism is happening now. It's happening. It's because of the Black Archives. We met in Berlin we met in Babylon, and we had a beautiful this beautiful connection, and we continued it. I have been actually going to Germany. We talked about this before, and this is where I met so many other Senegalese artists, and in such an international way. It's so funny. I go to Africa, but the connections that we Africans had happened in Europe. And I think this conversation is where we take it. It is the Black Archives. It's this. I met some amazing Senegalese artists. I met this guy named Human, who was a part of a group called P. Frost, and I met some other fantastic Africans in Munich, and they have helped me to continue this international dialogue. I work with a lot of other Senegalese artists as well. Didier Awadi, who's a fantastic guy who has done some stuff on that level, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about bridging that gap, and I hope you want to go back to Senegal because I'm going back. Dakar is a beautiful place to be creative and manifest. But that's a side note. I want to also add to my title, which I didn't do before. I'm a womanist, and I have to say that I didn't. I have to put that in correct context so you know. Has become and emerged as one of the most important things to me and things to talk about in the world is the protection of the womb. And why? Because the womb, and especially the black womb, is the place by which humanity sprang and which is under the most attack in the world right now. The weapons are aimed at the black womb in every kind of way. Even as I mentioned yesterday, down to the feminine products that are used are completely toxic for women's wombs. And so with my wife, Narissa Nefertiri, I developed a feminine health and wellness company that begins to put forth a new conversation, a dialogue, a connection, a community of women's wellness, and talk about products that we can use that will, heal the womb and protect the womb in a way. And so this has become kind of like a new motivation for me in my life, along with my 5 daughters, which is all I have to give to the world. This is my, so yeah. And so anyway, long story short, that's some of the things that I'm doing. I met DJ Bono in Italy about 10 years ago. He's a revolutionary, my comrade. He will be the guy who I'm going to do a concert with after we do this show, after we have this panel discussion. And I want to say I met that comrade on a revolutionary front, but he's an amazing musician with the technical skill of the highest form, playing upright bass and guitar and bass and all many instruments. We have made revolutionary albums now for the last 10 years. The first one was called AP2P, or All Power to the People, and the second was called Between Me and the World, which is taken from a play on Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And the reason why I connected with Bono was because I was tired of hip-hop, U.S. hip-hop, which was Black Ice. Was good, brother? Man. So I was tired of U.S. hip-hop, which was kind of like tolling the bell. You sit in front of audiences that kind of like rock back and forth, and it's kind of like, there was no energy. So I came to Europe in order to kind of create a space and refuel myself, and I was watching this movement. I'm talking about left-leaning progressive people who were squatting in places and showing me liberation tactics. I went to Rome on the day of protest and saw a protest that I'd never seen before, the likes of. And I've been on the streets in the U.S. organizing on the front line for like 20 years, and what I was able to see when I went to Italy helped me renew what I needed to see about the movement and about hip-hop, and it also helped me to lay what I do over a different bed of music. It was electronic, it was experimental in many ways, and I just want to say that's kind of like, as Dead Prez, we still doing music. I did a show with Stick last week in Brooklyn, Black Veg Fest. We'll be together at Mos Def's 20-year anniversary for Black on Both Sides next month in Brooklyn. We do stuff. We're doing stuff as Dead Prez. We're still alive. He's still my brother for life. And if you heard what I said about Dead Prez, we were Dead Prez. We were who we were before there was ever music. And that bond has kept me and my partner Stick together until this day. Now, I might not feel like making Let's Get Free again, and I will not. I won't. I'm not the same guy. I'm not the same guy who made Let's Get Free. If you want to hear Let's Get Free, play it. But I'm not going to make it again. I'm going to make it who I am now. And so for me, I've been struggling with that place, finding that place, being who I need to be, and thanking you for being here to listen to it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Give it up for Simona, AC, M1. So, we'll have a short break. It's gonna be a party in the next section of the program, and we will need your help, because we took a little bit more time than needed.